Have you ever noticed that some old cartoons feel aware? Not nostalgic, not emotional, aware. There's a reason collectors talk about lost episodes in whispers, unaired pilots, banned broadcasts, test animations that were never meant to air. Officially, they don't exist, but people keep finding them. This started on a retro animation forum 3 months ago. A user named Taperchivis94 made a single post. I found it again. No explanation, no backstory, just a download link and one sentence beneath it. Lost episodes can be found again. The file was small, 43 megabytes, timestamp 1997. When people opened it, they immediately recognized the show. A harmless morning cartoon, bright colors, simple music, a familiar character walking through a cobblestone street. But something felt off. The intro music was slower. Not distorted, just dragged. The colors were faded, like the tape had been sitting in a damp basement for decades. And the main character didn't move. He just stood there. 20 seconds. 30. 1 full minute. No blinking. No animation cycle. Then, as slowly his eyes shifted. Not to another character. To the camera. The screen flickered for half a second. When the image returned, the background had changed. Same street. Same layout, but the windows were boarded up. The sky was gray, the shadows were darker, and the audio was gone. No music, no dialogue, just the faint hiss of analog tape. At exactly 7 minutes where the official episode is supposed to end, the screen didn't cut to credits. It kept going. For additional minutes no one remembers ever existing. In those extra minutes, things start appearing in reflections. Shapes in windows. Figures behind doors that weren't there before. And at 10 minutes and 52 seconds, scratched into the wall behind the character, frame by frame, the words appear. You watched before. Here's the part that doesn't make sense. Different users reported different details. Some saw shadowy silhouettes. Some heard faint whispering layered under the static. One person claimed the character said their name in the final seconds. But when others re-downloaded the file to verify it, the ending was different. The link disappeared 24 hours later. The account was deleted. The thread was locked. Official archives still list the episode as 7 minutes long. And yet, every few weeks, someone posts that they've found it again. Under a different file name. In a different archive. Hidden inside normal episode collections. Always slightly changed. As if it adapts. As if it remembers who's watching. And if that's true, then the question isn't whether the episode is real. It's how many times you've already seen it. Part 1. I'm going to tell you a secret. But first, you have to promise me you won't laugh. This is still an uncomfortable subject for me, so I'd appreciate your understanding. Do we have a deal? When I was 5 years old, I watched a movie no child should ever see. I don't remember much about the circumstances of my viewing other than that it was at the house where my family lived, late at night, in the dark with only the television providing light. The film was an animated feature and depicted themes of animal cruelty, death, and dismemberment. The scenes were surreal and terrifying and left a deep impression on me. For years afterward, the only scene I could remember clearly was when an evil man was drowning a family of cats in a stream, which I would have nightmares about for years afterward. I remember seeing it early in the movie, followed by many more disturbing and surreal scenes. Remember your promise, because this is the part 1 was talking about. I never told anyone about what I saw, but the name of the movie was well known. The Aristocats. I suppose I can forgive you if you broke your promise, but I must emphasize that I am not joking. I saw a movie called The Aristocats, filled with the scenes I have described, and it scarred me for life. I didn't think about the experience very often, but it was always in the back of my mind in some way. Though I didn't realize it at the time, I know now that it caused me to shy away from animation and children's shows. It subtly informed my whole outlook on the trappings of childhood. I found myself bracing with dread whenever I had to watch any children's animation in school. My childhood was relatively normal otherwise, for an introvert anyway, but every once in a while I would think back to the movie and find my inner peace disturbed. It wasn't until maybe 3rd or 4th grade that I started to realize that my experience with the movie had not been typical. I didn't tell anyone, not even my parents, about what I had witnessed in that dark room at age 5, but I eventually figured out on my own that there was nothing horrific about the version everyone else had watched. I still wasn't willing to see it for myself, but I figured if they had seen what I had, I would have been able to tell whenever they spoke of the film. Anyone who had anything to say about it seemed to consider it either a nostalgic classic or unremarkable. When I was in middle school, I asked my mom if I had ever seen the Aristocats. She said I had once, having stayed up past my bedtime and watched it secretly. She said I seemed strangely disturbed by the film, and I had never wanted to watch it again as a small child. I asked if we still had it in the house, but she said I had been so afraid of the movie that she had thrown it out. It had been a home VHS recording she bought at an estate sale, rather than a retail copy. I finally decided to watch the movie again. I ordered it from the library and watched it one Saturday. It took me a couple hours to work up the courage to finally hit play. I found it to be a wonderful film. Immediately I realized that whatever I remembered seeing at age 5 had nothing to do with this movie. There was no graphic violence, no psychedelic scenes, nothing that should have traumatized me as a child. And yet, what I had seen all those years ago definitely shared elements with this movie. The kittens and their mother were drugged and kidnapped, not drowned, but I instantly recognized the moments leading up to this divergence, and almost had a flashback to the cartoon drowning I had witnessed. I was hoping to find closure, but instead I was more troubled than ever. There was no question in my mind now that I had viewed some awful and perverted version of this classic film. I told one of my friends about it a few days later. I didn't let him know how convinced I was of what I had seen as a young child, instead simply relating it as a vague and confused memory, like, hey, the other day, I saw the Aristocats. I used to be terrified of that movie because for some reason I thought I saw gore scenes and cats drowning when I watched it at 5 years old. Funny how your memory plays tricks on you at that age, isn't it? He told me about the movie Filenames. He explained that it was an animated movie about cats with a similar animation style that contained graphic gore scenes and was definitely not for children. He said maybe I had somehow seen that movie instead of the Aristocats. I streamed and watched Filenames. I saw what my friend meant about the style having the same feel as the Aristocats except dark and bloody, but it wasn't what I had seen. I knew for sure that 5-year-old me had watched a movie with the same characters as the Aristocats, and I also knew for sure that it had contained bizarre and disturbing scenes not shown in the mainstream version. This whole thing was driving me up a wall. To try and get some kind of closure, I started seeking out and watching old children's animation that contained graphic and disturbing elements that would never be included today, such as Watership Down, the 1978 version. While these works were interesting and gripping in their own way, they were decidedly non-Disney. While other studios may have been willing to take such risks with their works decades ago, the fact that the Aristocats is a Disney property made me sure that the version I had first seen was something I was absolutely not supposed to, ever. Part 2. I let it go after a while. A few years passed, and in college I learned about this internet urban legend called lost episodes. People claim to have seen episodes of TV shows or altered versions of movies, usually animated, that contained graphic and disturbing content. The episode or movie was often found in unexpected places, and those claiming to have seen it often said it mysteriously disappeared, whether through a VHS tape appearing to have somehow self-erased, a website going dead immediately after viewing, etc. To be honest, I didn't put much stock in the validity of these stories, but with my Aristocats experience still in the back of my mind, I decided to look further into it. I found a YouTube channel called Cartoon Geek, who was discussing a certain lost episode for his 40,000 subscriber special. After going through the obligatory thanks and talking about how much his subscribers meant to him and all that, he began. Now for those of you who are new to this channel, I'm basically just a guy obsessed with all things nostalgic and geeky about cartoons and other media. Most of my content is simply reviewing old cartoons and whatnot, usually superhero related. However, I also do a side series on the strange and creepy side of animation. For example, my 20K sub special was a 3-part series on Disney and their alleged subliminal messages in film and television, and this video you're watching now is sort of in that same vein. We're going to be taking another look at a certain lost episode. For those who don't know, lost episodes are basically this urban legend about episodes of TV shows which were lost, as the name implies. These episodes are said to contain graphic and/or disturbing and surreal elements and are generally regarded as material that the public was not meant to see. A few months ago I covered an alleged lost episode from the 1968 Filmation series The Adventures of Batman. I loved this show as a kid, even though it was a few decades before my time. And there was one episode with a scene where Batman and Robin fall through a trapdoor set by the Joker and slide toward their doom. At the end of the slide tunnel is a giant open furnace, looking like the Joker's face. Of course, since this is a kids' show, they don't actually slide into the furnace and burn alive. They get out with their gadgets. So to recap, in 2009 this anonymous internet post started circulating online about an alleged lost version of this scene. In it, the dynamic duo actually do slide into the furnace, burn alive, scream, and are shown graphically being burned to a crisp, followed by surreal and non-linear scenes of grieving friends of Bruce Wayne in mourning and the funeral service. Now, when I did my first video on this subject, I was honest with you guys. I didn't really think there was much credibility to this story. I like to keep an open mind on this show, but there were just certain elements of the post that made me say, okay, this is probably bullshit, like how the tape conveniently erased itself after the anonymous author viewed it. But since then I've gotten a lot of comments and emails talking about how allegedly this lost episode has been posted online. Naturally, a lot of you are already saying this is fake, but this topic won the poll for this special, so let's find out.